YouTube? Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well this morning, having a good start to your day. Well, last night was something else. Pretty much a full-on tornado outbreak, and then not to mention, there's also the wind and hail reports, a bona fide severe weather outbreak to say the least. 312 total reports, 26 of those being tornadoes, and then 143 apiece between wind and hail reports. 42 significant hail reports, including softball-sized hail in Wyoming, and then some significant wind reports, even as far south as the Texas coast here. So, very widespread, very crazy day. There was even a tornado emergency that was issued. I don't think there was too much damage. I haven't seen too much in the way of damage based off of social media so far. But, of course, we're in a new day now. We'll probably get a better scope of the damage if there was any significance there. Still, it's been a pretty crazy month, and we are far from finished. Because if we look on the outlooks here, okay, I don't know how that popped up. But if we look on the outlooks here, 3 days of slight risk, including today. We have a pretty broad slight risk area, even working its way into Missouri, parts of Illinois. But the main area of interest to me is Iowa, because all hazards are particularly possible there. The hail threat is significant. We have the hatched risk, which means we could see hail above 2 inches in diameter, so this could be a big hail day. There's even a chance, in my opinion, that this could get upgraded to enhanced risk. Not saying that I'm the Storm Prediction Center, but it would not surprise me in the slightest, see what I did there, to get an enhanced risk issued somewhere towards central Iowa. I was about to call it Illinois. But also a big-time wind threat is possible with these storms. And there is a 5% tornado threat that exists across parts of northeastern Missouri into the heart of Iowa, which includes the city of Des Moines, and then a small piece of southern Minnesota here. 2% area does exist, and it extends pretty well through Minnesota, but I don't see any potential for that to be upgraded beyond where we are now. I think the main point of emphasis is going to be right here towards the heart of the state of Iowa. So we'll go over the models and see what's changed between today and yesterday when I did the videos. And then also we have day 2 to look at. We're going to cover both of these days today because there is another slight risk. And this kind of has the look of maybe a line of thunderstorms, maybe even a bow echo, but there is also a 5% tornado threat. With this, it's mainly going to be centered over central Kentucky and even small portions of northern Tennessee. We're going to be keeping an eye on these areas throughout the day, tomorrow as well. Can't disinclude the Ohio Valley because towns like Cincinnati or cities like Cincinnati and Indy are in a marginal risk for tornadoes as well. Something to definitely keep an eye on. Wind threat is a little bit more widespread, and then again with the hail threat we have the hatched risk, meaning hail above 2 inches in diameter are possible. So plenty of weather to cover over the weekend. And we even have the slight risk on Monday, but we'll probably get into that one tomorrow morning, depending on how things go with tomorrow's slight risk. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the upper level wind pattern. So what we're doing right now is we're taking a look at the trough that begins to set up this afternoon. This is probably what's going to end up sparing a lot of Nebraska. We're just going to mainly see garden variety thunderstorms here, thankfully. But right about here, I'm going to mark this for you guys too, if it'll work. Okay, it should be up. Okay, maybe it's not working. Alright, so we got that fixed finally. I don't know what the heck happened there. But anyway, so you can see this trough that's set up right here in this little area, upper level low, so to speak, right here. Right on the boundary, this is where I'm expecting severe storms to refire after the MCS that was formed from yesterday's storms comes through. We're going to probably see some daytime heating develop right around lunchtime or just before in this region. And my concern would be that we could get some rotation with these storms, but even then, the there's other parameters such as downward cape and the lapse rates that would lead me to think that every hazard is possible here. Also, if you look at the temperatures overall, we're at 79 degrees Fahrenheit with a dew point of 65. Ripe conditions for severe weather. Definitely think that hail is probably going to be the dominant threat here. But look what happens with this trough as we continue to move forward here. That little ski jump area, this little area we call the ski jump right here, persists into the evening and overnight hours. And then eventually this low starts to strengthen and deepen a bit, and you can actually tell by these ISO bars here. As those tighten up, that indicates a stronger area of low pressure, and as a result, this actually starts to shift direction just slightly and begins to actually take a negative tilt. So we could see a big squall line begin to develop by the afternoon tomorrow, and as we go forward, this comes into play for Kentucky. The way these wind barbs are set up in comparison to the moisture, which we'll get into in just a second, I do think a few tornadoes would be possible within that line segment. As we go on, this was probably going to persist even into Monday, but it doesn't look quite as impressive, and it may not last as long. It'll be interesting to see what this feature over here does and how far south this pushes, because this could also influence a greater risk for severe weather across the southeast. But we'll have to, like I said, we'll make an update on Monday's video tomorrow morning. We'll make an update for Monday's setup tomorrow morning. Mincing my words here. Anyway, though, let's go ahead and look at the low-level jet as well. We aren't going to look at the mid-levels. We already can tell that this is a pretty good setup. Not much is really needed from the 700 today. But this is my real concern here. The fact that we have such a strong low-level jet so early in the day across this area. And pretty much anywhere within these little fingers here is where I'm concerned about tornado threat here. And here's a great example of that. Here's a sounding in a hodograph that got a pretty good curve to it. Usually when you have these curves in the hodograph, that usually indicates pretty good low-level kinematics. However, the high-level kinematics look pretty interesting. As a whole, though, interestingly enough, there's not a lot of instability with this setup. I was expecting a little bit more. But nonetheless, though, we also have plenty of downward cape, or D-cape as it's called here. We're at 1453 joules per kilogram here. So not only is there a notable tornado threat, the damaging wind threat is pretty impressive too. Storm could slightly be elevated here. So if a storm does develop in this area, tornado potential is there, but winds are probably going to be the main threat. That being said, let's continue to go forward here. This is early in the afternoon. Low-level jet kind of deepens. So by about 2 o'clock Central, that's when I would be thinking the greatest tornado threat could be possible. Like I said earlier on that last sounding, hodograph curved. Upper level is doing some weird stuff, though. Could be an interesting vector. I don't really see a lot of potential for a supercell here, but like I said, downward cape definitely is there. So damaging wind, downdraft potential, downburst, definitely possible. Lapse rates start to fall off a little bit later in the afternoon here, so we're going to be transitioning from a tornado and a hail threat more so towards a wind threat throughout the day and into the evening. Not to say that tornadoes aren't possible, but they're going to be a lot less probable here. And then as we go into tomorrow, low-level jet really starts to ramp up towards the evening hours here. I think by the time we get towards dinner time and just after, that's when we'll start to see parameters really begin to ramp up here. And look at this. This is a key difference from what we were seeing a little earlier. There could be a couple of embedded supercells or even discrete cells. If so, this is definitely a little bit more concerning. And this curve on the hodograph is a bit more concerning too. Also notice the direction that this hodograph is pointing. This is a perfect example of hodographs indicating storm vectors. So this is going to be moving towards the southeast here, which is just like that trough that we were showing here. Interesting thing to note here that there is a cap, and this could be a key component to how storms end up developing. If it's aligned, the tornado threat might decrease, but if this cap breaks, which it very well could, because the convective inhibition isn't super high, we could very well be seeing some discrete cells out ahead of the main line and tornado potential increasing, which could even lead to an upgrade in risk. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get there, but a good way to know if there's a pretty good tornado potential sometimes is the significant tornado parameter. And from what we can see here, we're at a 5. That's a pretty high number. And there are a lot of supercell analogs with this as well. So there is something to keep note of here for tomorrow. But the big thing I see here, not alongside the tornado threat and the storm elder Felicity here, is the decay, which we're sitting at 1,686 joules per kilogram. Again, like I said before, usually 1,000 is about the minimum that you would need for damaging winds or to have good confidence in a damaging wind setup. We're well past that at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised to see an upgrade to an enhanced risk tomorrow, especially with the wind threat and the low-level jet being as strong as it is. This, like I said, this could persist into the following day, Monday here. So we'll have to see what happens. It looks like the low kind of deteriorates a little bit, but we'll have, like I said, we're going to have to pretty much play the waiting game with this. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at the dew points. We're going to actually do it a little bit differently, though. We're going to take a look at some of the wind barbs here. These are going to be a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to draw one out for you just to help you along. But basically, it's one of these little numbers right here, and these are going to move around as I change the hour on the models here. So keep an eye on the direction that that's going. So for example, we saw the storm vector going more so this way, right? So if we see any sort of wind barbs going this way over the areas of concern, that will be an area of interest for increased wind shear. That being said, let's go ahead and roll that forward here. All right, so here's our moisture surge coming in for today setup. We get some 70-degree dew points here easily. And we may even get some corn sweating into the equation here. I think I even see a couple of 80-degree dew points. That's insane. So watch out over towards Missouri as the evening goes on here. I think your storm threat might exist even into the night. But as time goes on here, here's that upper level low. You can see the spin right there, some vorticity going on. And then look at the moisture return that we get as we head into tomorrow afternoon. Widespread 70-degree dew points. Okay, I don't know why that just happened. Computer acting up here. Just had to fix that again. But that being said, though, we can clearly see 70 and even some 80-degree dew points coming into the equation here. It's very concerning. I do have increased confidence just from looking at this now that there could even be an enhanced risk tomorrow. So something to keep an eye on there. And then even into Monday, those dew points are dominant across the southeast. So pretty high ceiling over the next couple of days with severe weather potential. Of course, since I can't see all the way into Monday with this model, like I said, I'm not really going to look into it too much. But if this is any indicator, we could have some big time weather ahead. So now that we've looked at all of that, let's look at some severe parameters here. We're going to start out by looking out towards the setup today. What we're looking at here is lapse rates. Lapse rates are a very good indicator of hail potential. And by 17Z, it looks like we do have a few 8s. Like I said, earlier in the day is when I think the hail threat's going to exist, and then the tornado threat will also exist with this. As we head later into the evening, could see a little bit of resurgence of hail, but mainly I'm thinking earlier in the day we could see the greatest potential. These storms do look a little bit more elevated, so the hail threat definitely seems to check out with this one more so. And then as time goes on, we start to see a little bit of a decline in the hail threat until we start to get into Illinois here. As we head into Illinois later into the evening, we could see some major hail there. And then as we get into the following day, we're going to actually switch over to this map here so we can see everybody that's in line for tomorrow's storms. We do get some pretty good lapse rates here. Not quite as impressive as what we're seeing today, but nonetheless, do see a few sevens in there. Could even sneak in an 8 depending on which area you're in, maybe towards western Tennessee, albeit the threat seems to exist a little bit further off to the north than what we're seeing with this look here. But big time hail still could be possible with this setup tomorrow, and then maybe on Monday we could see another setup for hail as well. Next thing we're going to look at here is Cape. And Cape on today's setup isn't that impressive. And I think that's one potential fail parameter, I would say. Wait, I've spoken too soon. We've seen an uptick here recently. And this is where my concern lies over towards southern Illinois and this, or Indiana. Wow, Indiana. Iowa, good grief. But very high Cape later into the evening. I was kind of expecting things to kind of drop off later into the afternoon here, but it looks like we still have some potential for tornadic activity, although kinematics aren't quite as impressive. And supercell analogs aren't impressive. These are just going to probably be linear storms for the most part, or just really messy storms, so to speak. But nonetheless, tornado threat still does exist with these storms here. Continue to push this onward and head into tomorrow here. So by the time we get towards tomorrow morning, I think the severe threat for the most part diminishes towards the Ohio Valley, and then we switch over more so towards the southeast, the Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley regions. So this is heading into Sunday morning. And then look what happens by the time we get towards lunchtime. We get some really explosive Cape here. Those dew points usually aid in increasing the amount of energy available in the atmosphere typically. And to see these numbers this early is a little bit alarming, not going to lie. So that being said, more impressive dew points also. And this one doesn't have as much of a cap with it too. That's interesting. But the kinematics are a little bit better set up. So tomorrow could be an even bigger day than today. I thought today had the potential to be a big one, and it still does. But the more I'm looking at this, the more impressed I've become. And not necessarily in a good way either. Like, this is an impressive setup as far as potential is concerned. It still doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen too, so I just want to make sure that's noted as well. Cape does seem a little bit more limited on Monday, thankfully, or at least starting out. By the time we get towards the end of the run, okay, we might be seeing a little bit more weather. But again, we'll have to cross that bridge whenever we get there. Last thing to look at here will be the updraft helicity with the reflectivity here. This is going to be a key indicator of our tornado potential in both areas. So we'll start out looking towards the Midwest today, mainly towards Iowa. Here's that MCS coming through right now. New convection forms, but it's very messy on here actually. But we do get some more discrete supercells, maybe more so towards southern Iowa and maybe into Missouri. So that's something to keep an eye on as we head into the evening and maybe even the overnight hours. This has definitely changed my timing as to when I was going to go live. I thought it was going to be a little bit earlier in the day, but now maybe we'll do an evening stream. But also, let's not discount the setup for tomorrow. We do still see a few major storm potential over towards Indiana and Ohio, but the threat is definitely going to be more so dominant towards the southeast, towards the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. We'll go ahead and do the same thing with this setup here. We'll go ahead and find reflectivity. We're going to see pretty much a similar setup, but I think the storms are definitely going to be a little bit more stronger, or a little bit stronger with this setup here. MCS comes through early in the day, and then late in the evening, we start to see these storms begin to fire. This could be an overnight setup too, maybe even a bow echo, potentially even a derecho if this holds out. and then we could see some refiring as we head into the day for Monday. But a lot of moving parts here with this setup. It's going to be an interesting weekend to say the least, and maybe even an interesting Monday. We'll be here to cover it all, so make sure you're hitting that bell. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, if you're watching these videos for the first time. But anyways, this has been Tire Metalhead Weatherman. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share the video, and I'll see you guys this afternoon. Till then, take care and have a nice day.